Good day guys, and welcome to another video. And back by popular demand, this is part 2 of Trinidad versus Jamaica fruit names. Comments was very active. A lot of people asked for a part 2. That first video, I was kind of speaking off the top of my head of trying to remember fruits. I got reminded from the comments of fruits that I haven't seen for years, but I remember eating in Trinidad when I was a mere little lad, or a little picnic as they say in Jamaica. There are a lot of fruits that I didn't mention. Also, I'm going to mention fruits that I'm not even sure of the Jamaican name counterpart, but I'm going to mention the fruit anyway, and I know you guys will help me out in the comments below. And that's what I really love about that last video. I put it out there, comments just took off, and all of our Caribbean brothers and sisters chimed in and speak about their childhood memories of eating fruits and sharing names. It was just fantastic. I really enjoyed the interaction on that video. Before we fully get started, I just wanted to highlight one or two things. In Grenada, St. Vincent's, and our sister isle, Tobago, they've said that the Pommecythere, they call it golden apple. I really like that name, Golden Apple. Really, really cool. And I'm glad that we're getting the other Caribbean islands pulled in also. There are some strange ones also. Barbados chimed in and one or two others. They say they're called Chanet or Guinep. Ackee. That is strange to me because there is a distinct thing called Ackee. You know, in Jamaica, ackee and saltfish. I'm going to put the picture here. It's a very popular dish. But to hear that name used for Chanet or Guinep is very, very strange to me. But if that's what you guys grew up calling it, that's what you know it as, right? There was also a lot of comments correcting me and saying that a lot of Jamaicans do not know the star apple by that name. They would know it by another name. Jambalin or Jimalin. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it well. I'll have somewhat of the spelling here. But a lot of Jamaicans say that. Now, there were one or two Jamaicans who said, yes, they do know it as star apple. Most was saying it's called Jambalin or Jimbalin. The thing is, when I dug a little deeper, I found out that there is another fruit that also shares that name in Jamaica. But we'll get to that later on. The word Zaboka that is used in a lot of other countries, and I'm learning a lot of the countries that has French influence, they do say Zaboka also. And it is like a French Creole word derived from the way they say avocado in French. And in French, if you don't know, they have a tendency to want the language to sound a bit smooth. I forget there is a word for it, and they try to link words together in their sentences. Especially hard consonants that are close to the end of a word, they have a tendency to just drop those so the language kind of flows. So therefore, something like avocado, they will kind of smooth it out in the end, and eventually you get the Creole, the French Creole, Zaboka. I find that quite interesting. And a lot of people don't know that Trinidad has a lot of French influence, although it was never conquered by the French. Maybe I could do a separate video on that. Also, I was reminded about custard apple name, and I remember saying custard apple or being told this was a custard apple that they call sweet sop or sugar apple. We have to keep in mind that there are different variations of the same fruit, like the same way mango has different types. There might be different variations or very similar variations, and certain names might be specific to one variation or the other. Alright, let's get going. And what really reminded me of this one is that I was going through the supermarket and I saw 5 fingers. I'm going to show you guys a little video here. I found 5 fingers in the supermarket, which is pretty cool. I also saw some Pommecythere. I always see Pommecythere when it's in season. They put it in the supermarkets here in Jamaica. But I got a reminder of my childhood when I saw in Trinidad, we call this Christophine. Now, it's a fruit that we don't really use as a fruit, as you guys know. It does look like a pear, like the American pear, but it is not sweet. And we actually cook this in savory dishes. This is something, if you're making a salad or even something like a curry or whatnot, you could actually cut up Christophine and put it in and you get a nice crunch out of it. Christophine. Now in Jamaica, you guys know what you call this. Chocho. Alright, now I'm not too sure why the name is like that, but Trinidad Christophine, Jamaica, Chocho. Now, if you guys know, a fig is actually a very different type of fruit that you find in other parts of the world. But in Trinidad, we have a tendency to call bananas fig. But there are different types of bananas, as you know. The smaller type of banana that is known as honey banana or bumpy banana in Jamaica. In Trinidad, we know it as silk fig or sikiye. I grew up saying sikiye fig. And it's the smaller type. They are a little more sweeter. I really grew up loving those bananas And again, I don't know why, but in Trinidad we have a tendency to call bananas, no matter the type, fig. This fruit, I'm going to show it here. In Trinidad, we know it as sour cherry. The proper name, I think, is a Utahiti gooseberry or something like that. In Jamaica, this is also known as a jumblin, the same name you have for the star fruit. I know a few people who call that the same thing, so there's a bit of a mix up there. I don't know what's happening. In Trinidad, we call it sour cherry. We preserve it, and that's why I really like it to eat, like red series or red cherry, this kind of thing. The next fruit, of course, is a very popular fruit, tangerine. I've seen this many times in the grocery, and I grew up with this fruit, but we never call it tangerine. The proper name in Trinidad is Portugal, and generally it is known as a Portugal. But in Trinidad, we have a very Trini name for it. Putigal. Even up to now, I kind of get rubbed the wrong way when somebody tries to correct me and say, it's not Putigal, it's Portugal. I grew up saying Putigal. I'm going to continue calling this thing Putigal because that is how languages evolve. If enough people say something over time, eventually that has to be the word. That is why they keep adding words to the dictionary. Putigal, like in Trinidad, if you tell somebody, give some directions to San Juan, they'll want to know what you're talking about. But if you say, you want to know how to go Sawa, they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. Now, this other fruit is pretty close to jackfruit. And again, it's one of those fruits where it's more savory because we boil the seeds of this fruit and eat it. And we also, the skin around when we peel it and whatnot, and even the seeds, we curry it, and it's like a takari we eat with roti in Indian weddings and whatnot. You see it. That's why in Indian weddings you don't really miss meat because there is such a good variety of vegetarian food. We know it as Chatan. I know that it's called a bread nut officially. There is an Indian name Katahar, but I'm not too sure what you might call this in Jamaica. Is it known as bread nut? Let me know in the comments. And the seeds, I remember clearly eating that, and they say it'll make you pass wind. So we used to be very cautious about anyone who eats a lot of Chatan, the boiled Chatan. Well, this one, I remember being small and loving this thing so much. I used to eat so much, but now it's gotten so expensive in Trinidad. Pewa. Now, Pewa is a fruit of like a palm tree, and I think it's a specific palm tree. You take it and you boil it. I had to boil it for a long time in heavy salted water, and then you peel it and you eat the pulp inside, and there is a solid black seed in the middle. Some people eat through the whole skin and everything. Man, I love a good Pewa. I have seen in Fairview in Montego Bay, there are some palm trees, and I see the fruit and it looks very much like Pewa. I always want to cut piece and boil it and see and taste it and see if it is Pewa, but I'm too afraid to do that. I think outside of Trinidad it might be known as peach palm or awara. I hope when I go back to Trinidad soon that I will get some Pewa to eat. This is a fruit I haven't seen for some time, and I think that there is a Jamaican name to it. It's called, in Trinidad I know it as, when I was younger, we would see it much more, Barbados. I think the official name is Granadin, and I think in Jamaica you call it Jamaican passion fruit. I could be wrong. It could be one of those things where it's a variation of a fruit that has a specific name. So it is related to passion fruit because it kind of looks the same, and you kind of make the juice out of the seeds and some of the pulp. But I remember being young and drinking Barbadine juice in Trinidad. Barbadine, Granadine, or Jamaican passion fruit. Let me know if you guys know what I'm talking about. It's very popular, less as a fruit but more as a juice or punch. Now, one or two people in the comments asked me specifically about this fruit. In Trinidad, I knew it as dungs, but I also know other names for it. Dunce. It is something when we were small that if you see someone eating it, you'll call them, hey, you're eating dunks, so you're dunce. Dungs. It's a small fruit with a kind of greenish, thin greenish skin that you can actually eat. You bite into it, and it has a kind of fleshy, like apple almost consistency, and it's somewhat tangy, but dungs. I haven't seen dungs in so long. The other names for dungs could be dunks, dunce, as I say. In Jamaica, what do you guys call this fruit? Is it also called dungs? Again, it's a fruit I haven't seen in some time. This one is pretty interesting. I haven't personally eaten this fruit because I was kind of a picky eater when I was small. I was a little hardened. So I didn't like the look of this fruit. I didn't like where it come from, and I didn't eat it. And in Trinidad, we call it Grube. That's a name. In Trinidad, you have some weird names, Grube or Gru. Alright, it grows on top, it looks like a coconut tree, but the trunk of this coconut tree is covered in spikes. You have to have a ladder, you can't climb a Grube tree. It's kind of a joke in Trinidad. You have to have a ladder. There was this old commercial, a Guinness commercial. They used to say certain situations and they would say, man, that calls for a Guinness because you're under pressure. You need Guinness to help you out. So one of the commercials was, imagine you climb up a Grube tree to get some Grube and somebody thief the ladder. What you gonna do? And the answer is, man, that calls for a Guinness. So anyway, Grube, Banga, what is the name in Jamaica, if any at all? I know maybe one or two of these fruits I'm talking about, maybe not so available in Jamaica or the other islands. Let me know what you guys call these fruits. Oh, this one is a bit interesting. It's not really a fruit. This is related to one of the tubers, yam and that kind of thing, because it actually grows in the ground. I remember eating this. Tippy Tambo. You dig it up from the ground. I remember digging up Tippy Tambo from the ground. When did that happen? I can't remember where, but I remember that clearly in my mind. You wash it out, you boil it, you peel the skin, and they're small like grapes, and you eat the flesh. It's a tuber. It's like a small yam. You boil it in very salted water to give it some taste. And I remember eating a lot of Tippy Tambo. I did some digging and they call it sweet corn root or arrowroot. I'm not sure what it might be called in Jamaica or the other islands. Let me know in the comments. We know it as Tippy Tambo. And of course, we have the very popular tamarind. Now, in Trinidad, this fruit is very popular. There we make different kind of things like tamarind balls, tamarind sauce to eat with our doubles and whatnot. It's very popular in Trinidad. And I remember picking this from the tree when I was small, biting the hard skin off and chewing up the hard skin, and it'll give you a kind of tangy thing. That tamarind seed and that tangy taste. So I eating this thing raw and ripe. You know what I mean? In Trinidad, we don't really say tamarind. We say tamarind. So we don't say tamarind balls or anything like when we're talking about the thing we make. We say tamarind balls. Kind of we shorten the name. Instead of tamarind, we say tamarind. Is that how you say it in the other Caribbean islands? Let me know. And guys, that's mostly it. I want to thank everyone again for just the interaction on that last video, man. 52,000 or more views, a lot of comments. I try my best to answer. I really enjoy some of the history people are sharing, the knowledge they're sharing in the comments. I really do appreciate it. Islands that have some French influence will call fruits in a certain way because of that influence. Trinidad has a tendency to kind of hold on at times to the native names. I could do a whole list of names of cities in Trinidad. Have I done that video already? If not, maybe I should do. But there are towns in Trinidad with some odd sounding names. And the reason they're odd sounding to our English and colonized ears is their native words that we still hold on to in Trinidad. Places like Shagaramas, Shabuanas, Arima, Curep. All those are names that it rolls off the tongue in a different way than the English words and the Spanish words and that kind of thing. It kind of helps us understand our history, which colonizer or which, European power influenced us. Although we might be different. Remember in the last video I talked about Chatan being, not Chatan, oh my god, Chanet, having this fear of swallowing it when we grow up, and someone in the comments says they know someone who died from that. That's a shared thing over countries, man. So it shows you that our culture spans countries and we are actually more similar than we might know. So again, thanks so much for the interaction on these videos. I'm going to try to continue to make these type of videos, but I also hope when I start to do back my vlogs and whatnot, I'll be traveling to Trinidad at some point, that I continue to get the support. That kind of wraps up the fruit names Trinidad versus Jamaica. Thanks so much for all the support. I always do appreciate it. As always, remember to like the video, remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay? Bye.